It started with a single Instagram post, but the ripple effect could destroy everything Meghan Markle has built. On September 15, 2025, Jessica Mulroney, the woman who once stood beside Meghan at her royal wedding, who helped style her for her big moments, who was her closest confidant during her rise to global fame, announced a tell-all memoir that sent shockwaves through Hollywood, Buckingham Palace, and Montecito all at once. The title? Behind the Veil: My Story of Meghan and Me. And just like that, a decade-long friendship was weaponized. This isn't a case of a disgruntled ex-employee or some tabloid hack scraping together half-truths. This is a woman who knew Meghan better than anyone. She wasn't just in the room. She helped build the room. She held Meghan's secrets, managed her chaos, and, most importantly, stayed silent until now. What makes this betrayal so devastating isn't just the receipts Jessica claims to have. Emails, text messages, voice recordings. It's the timing. Meghan and Harry's brand is already teetering. Netflix deals are crumbling. The Spotify contract is dead, and their once loyal fan base is fracturing. And now, the one person who knows where all the bodies are buried is promising to dig them up for the world to see. Jessica isn't being subtle either. She's making it clear this book won't be kind, it won't be filtered, and it won't protect Meghan's carefully curated image. It's personal, it's pointed, and it's perfectly timed. For years, Meghan framed herself as the misunderstood heroine in a royal tragedy. But Jessica's memoir threatens to rewrite that script. And this time, the villain may not be who we thought. Because when your best friend becomes your biggest threat, that's not just betrayal, that's war. And what happens next might just blow the entire royal narrative apart. Before the palace, before the press, before the prince, there was Jessica. Jessica Mulroney wasn't just another friend in Meghan Markle's orbit. She was a friend, the ride or die, the inner circle. The woman who styled Meghan for some of her most iconic public appearances, helped plan her royal wedding, and stood proudly by her side when the world watched Meghan walk into royalty. To the outside world, they were inseparable, glamorous, empowered, fiercely loyal women, rewriting what female friendship in the spotlight looked like. But behind the matching smiles and Instagram tributes, the cracks were already forming. Jessica wasn't just Meghan's best friend, she was her strategic ally. A well-connected Canadian fashion stylist, married to a prominent political family, Jessica offered Meghan a direct link into elite society circles before she ever met Harry. It was Jessica who reportedly encouraged Meghan to date British royalty. Jessica who introduced her to stylists, power brokers, and image consultants. Jessica who provided not just support, but access, and then silence. After the 2020 racism scandal exploded on social media, Meghan distanced herself from Jessica with surgical precision. No defense, no statement, no loyalty, just gone. The woman who once called Meghan family was ghosted like a PR liability. Meghan's global brand soared. Jessica's career crashed. But now, Jessica's back, and she's not playing the loyal sidekick anymore. By announcing her upcoming memoir Behind the Veil, Jessica isn't just pulling back the curtain on Meghan's public image. She's torching the entire stage they once shared. This isn't some messy breakup. It's a calculated counterstrike by someone who feels erased, betrayed, and blamed. And unlike the palace, the tabloids, or distant relatives, Jessica doesn't need access. She had it. For years, she was the woman on the other end of the midnight calls, the fixer when drama spiraled out of control, the person who knew Meghan before the Duchess title, before the royal protocols, and before the curated victimhood narrative. And that's what makes this memoir so lethal. Jessica doesn't need to guess. She was there. She saw it all. The question isn't whether Jessica has tea to spill. It's how much of it she's been boiling behind the scenes, and how scorched Meghan's reputation will be once she pours. Because turning your maid of honor into your mortal enemy, that's not just bad optics. That's a signal. The gloves are off. This isn't gossip. This isn't hearsay. This is war, with evidence. When Jessica Mulroney announced her memoir, she didn't just tease emotional anecdotes or veiled references. She came armed. And what she's bringing to the table is far more dangerous than vague accusations or tabloid rumors. We're talking receipts, text messages, emails, voice memos, and allegedly even recorded phone calls, all meticulously saved, cataloged, and now weaponized. For years, Jessica kept her silence. Publicly humiliated, branded as a racist, and abandoned by the very woman she'd once called family, she chose not to respond. But privately, she was building an archive, not out of pettiness, but survival. Because when your reputation is shredded and your career torched while your former best friend climbs higher, you start preparing for the day when you'll finally get to tell your side of the story and make sure no one can twist it again. Jessica isn't bluffing. According to industry insiders, her manuscript includes time-stamped screenshots of conversations between her and Meghan during the height of the royal exit drama. Conversations where Meghan allegedly shared private concerns about royal life, vented about Harry's mental state, and discussed strategies to control the media narrative. Some messages, sources say, directly contradict Meghan's public claims of being silenced and unsupported. But it goes deeper. Jessica reportedly possesses emails between their business teams, showcasing disagreements over money, branding, and control of joint ventures, evidence that their relationship was unraveling behind the scenes long before the public fallout. And then there are the voice recordings. Whispers in publishing circles suggest that Jessica recorded at least 2 phone calls during which Meghan made comments about the royal family that, if made public, could obliterate the carefully curated image of grace and victimhood she's clung to for years. Why does this matter? Because words on paper can be denied, but recordings speak for themselves. And Jessica isn't using this evidence just to defend herself. She's using it to flip the script. For years, she's been cast as the villain, the privileged white stylist who didn't understand race, the toxic friend Meghan had to leave behind. But with these receipts, Jessica plans to show that she was coached, manipulated, and ultimately sacrificed to protect Meghan's brand. This is more than a friendship gone sour. This is a calculated takedown by someone who has nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The revenge isn't just emotional, it's financial. Jessica reportedly secured a 7-figure deal with Kensington Press, backed by a legal team ready for any defamation pushback Meghan might attempt. And here's the twist. Insiders claim the publisher already verified the receipts before agreeing to print a single word. That means they've seen the messages, heard the recordings, and they believe her. Meghan's team panicked. Sources close to Montecito report emergency legal meetings, damage control discussions, and attempts to quietly reach out to Jessica behind the scenes. But it's too late. The memoir is happening. And for the first time, someone with real access is ready to tell the unfiltered truth. Because when the person you trusted most turns around with a stack of receipts, it's not just betrayal, it's checkmate. And the next move? Jessica's playing it loud. It was the scandal that shattered their friendship and scorched Jessica Mulroney's public image beyond recognition. In 2020, the internet erupted when lifestyle influencer Sasha Exeter accused Jessica of textbook white privilege after a private disagreement turned public. Within days, Jessica was canceled, her contracts severed, her shows pulled, her name dragged through digital mud. And while the world watched in real time as her career imploded, Meghan Markle did something no one expected from a woman who preached female empowerment and stood against injustice. She walked away. At the height of the controversy, Meghan released a cold, calculated statement, distancing herself from Jessica, citing a need for space and reflection. The press ran with it. Headlines branded Jessica the problematic white friend. Meghan once again became the heroine, cutting ties with a toxic figure to protect her integrity. The message was clear. Jessica was on the wrong side of history, and Meghan had no choice but to leave her behind. But what if that narrative was a lie? Jessica's upcoming memoir promises to completely rewrite the story that the media and Meghan herself sold to the world. And this time, Jessica isn't just offering an opinion, she's offering proof. According to leaks from sources close to the book, Jessica has screenshots of conversations and private messages with Meghan that paint a radically different picture. Far from condemning Jessica's actions at the time, Meghan allegedly coached her behind the scenes on how to respond to the backlash. The messages reportedly include suggestions on wording, timing, and even how to manipulate sympathy. In one particularly damning exchange, Meghan is said to have advised Jessica to be assertive and don't apologize unless absolutely necessary, a far cry from the public image she projected once the storm hit. Even more explosively, Jessica claims Meghan promised to stand by her publicly, even after the controversy broke. According to insiders familiar with the memoir, Meghan gave Jessica verbal assurances during late-night phone calls that they were in this together, and that friendship means loyalty, even in chaos. But those promises turned to dust the moment public opinion turned. Within days, Meghan had cut Jessica loose and left her to take the full heat alone. Jessica now sees that moment for what it was, a setup, a calculated sacrifice made to protect the brand of Meghan Markle, the anti-racist royal rebel who couldn't afford to be associated with someone toxic. She wasn't distancing herself to uphold values, she was protecting a business. But the real betrayal? Jessica believes Meghan not only abandoned her, but also actively participated in her public takedown. Reports suggest the memoir includes detailed accounts of how Meghan's PR team allegedly fed negative stories about Jessica to key media outlets, while Meghan maintained her signature silence. If true, it means Jessica didn't just lose a friend, she was framed by one. What's even more chilling are rumors that Jessica possesses recorded calls in which Meghan expressed vastly different views about the situation behind closed doors, admitting she understood Jessica's position, acknowledging the mess was more complex than what the internet made it out to be, even expressing guilt. Yet none of that made it into Meghan's public stance. Because according to Jessica, Meghan chose the role of martyr, and to play it, someone else had to be the villain. And Jessica fit the role perfectly. For Meghan, it was a clean narrative. sever ties, signal virtue, and let the public fill in the rest. But for Jessica, it was a career-ending decision that left her branded, bullied, and blacklisted. Her children were harassed. Her name became toxic. Her reputation decimated. Until now. It's because Behind the Veil isn't just a memoir, it's a reckoning. Jessica plans to tell the full story of how the scandal unfolded, how Meghan manipulated the optics, and how one woman's silence fed another woman's rise. She's naming names, showing receipts, and exposing the machinery behind the persona. And the hypocrisy at the core of this could obliterate the foundations of Meghan's brand. She built her post-royal image on moral authority, speaking out against racism, injustice, and social exclusion. But if Jessica's receipts prove that Meghan weaponized racial politics to destroy a friend and preserve her own image, it doesn't just challenge her credibility, it shatters it. This scandal wasn't an isolated event. It was a blueprint. And Jessica is ready to show how Meghan's greatest strength, her control over the narrative, was used not just to uplift her image, but to demolish anyone who threatened it. The public thought they knew the story. Jessica was the privileged white woman who crossed a line. Meghan was the principal duchess who walked away. But what if the real story was written in reverse? And what happens when the villain steps out of the shadows and hands the world the receipts? When Meghan and Harry announced their massive multi-million-dollar deal with Netflix in 2020, it was hailed as a triumphant new chapter. No longer tethered to the crown, the Sussexes were stepping into their power. Creatives, producers, and storytellers ready to build a better world through content. At least that was the press release. But behind the scenes, Jessica Mulroney was watching a very different story unfold. And now she's ready to tell it. Jessica wasn't just a friend in the background. She was an active participant in Meghan's post-royal empire building. In the early days after Megxit, Meghan and Jessica were reportedly working side by side on joint ventures, styling projects, branded partnerships, lifestyle concepts, and yes, pitch decks for streaming platforms. Jessica had access to it all. She saw the brainstorming sessions, the celebrity meetings, and the phone calls with producers. She wasn't just witnessing the transformation, she was helping design it. And now, she's lifting the curtain. According to industry insiders who've previewed sections of Behind the Veil, Jessica's memoir will contain detailed accounts of the Netflix deal negotiations, including private conversations between Meghan, Harry, and their team. One claim in particular is already sending shockwaves through Hollywood, that Meghan was the mastermind behind the entire pitch strategy, not Harry. While the public narrative painted the prince as a passionate advocate for mental health and veterans' stories, Jessica suggests it was Meghan who pulled the strings, curating the optics, crafting the proposals, and calculating every move for maximum public sympathy. But here's where it gets explosive. Jessica reportedly alleges that Meghan used their friendship as leverage in the deal-making process. Sources say the book includes emails and memos where Meghan referenced her media circle and influencer pipeline, code for Jessica's connections in fashion, entertainment, and lifestyle media. Meghan allegedly name-dropped Jessica to bolster credibility in the industry, positioning their friendship as part of her creative support system. But once the Netflix deal was secured and the ink dried on the contracts, Jessica was cut out. Not only did Meghan sideline Jessica from any official production roles, she reportedly ghosted her from the inner business circle entirely, leaving Jessica blindsided and bitter. And according to the memoir, it wasn't just a friendship betrayal. It was a strategic purge. Jessica also claims she was present for multiple heated discussions between Meghan and Harry over the content of their docuseries. And what she witnessed, she says, was far from the harmonious royal power couple the public saw on screen. Instead, Jessica describes a tense, high-stakes atmosphere where Meghan allegedly insisted on framing specific narratives, some of which directly contradicted Harry's original vision. But perhaps most damning of all, Jessica alleges that Meghan pressured Harry to include bombshells about the royal family in the documentary. And later, in Spare, she reportedly advised him on what to reveal, what to soften, and what to leave out entirely. If true, this completely upends the Sussexes' narrative that Harry's memoir and Netflix projects were authentic and from the heart. It reframes the entire operation as scripted revenge. Jessica's memoir reportedly includes specific examples, exact lines Meghan pushed to include, story arcs she engineered, and moments that were re-edited to evoke stronger emotional reactions. In one particularly explosive claim, Jessica says Meghan told her in private that the Netflix documentary was our second chance to control the story the palace tried to bury. That's not storytelling, that's war. The behind-the-scenes revelations don't stop there. Jessica also delves into the internal chaos of Archwell Productions. From last-minute reshoots to production delays, creative disagreements, and missed deadlines, she paints a picture of dysfunction and ego management, not creative innovation. Multiple staff members allegedly quit or were replaced due to tension within the team. And Jessica claims Meghan routinely ignored expert advice in favor of her own instincts, even when it led to negative consequences. The result? Projects that underdelivered, budgets that ballooned, and a streaming partner, Netflix, that began to lose patience. Jessica's account lands at a dangerous moment for the Sussexes. Netflix is reportedly reconsidering its renewal of the couple's deal. Their animated series, Pearl, was canceled. Their follow-up projects failed to trend globally. And internally, according to industry chatter, executives are frustrated that the Sussex brand hasn't delivered the massive cultural returns it once promised. Now imagine those frustrations being validated by Meghan's own former best friend, who's prepared to say, "I was there, and it was worse than anyone knew." For viewers who believe the Netflix series was Meghan and Harry reclaiming their truth, Jessica's revelations are a gut punch. Because if the person sitting in the front row, privy to the private emails, phone calls, and late-night strategy sessions, is now revealing that it was all carefully manipulated performance, then what else has been curated? What else has been sold as authenticity, but was actually theater? Behind the veil isn't just a betrayal, it's a deconstruction. Jessica isn't pulling punches. She's naming executives, citing deals, including dates and timestamps to back up every claim. And with the memoir already causing panic in Montecito and Kensington Press fast-tracking its release, Meghan may not have time to mount a counter-narrative. Because Jessica isn't speculating from the sidelines. She was on the inside, and she's finally telling the world what really happened when the cameras stopped rolling, and the Sussex story got rewritten behind closed doors. And this time, Meghan doesn't control the edit. They were the kind of best friends who didn't just swap secrets, they swapped contracts. For years, Meghan Markle and Jessica Mulroney weren't just inseparable socially, they were deeply entwined professionally. From lavish weddings to lucrative branding partnerships, the two women were co-creators of an empire in the making. But as Meghan's star rose to stratospheric levels after joining the royal family, Jessica found herself quietly being pushed out. And now, in Behind the Veil, she's telling the world exactly how and why it all came crashing down. Let's start with the crown jewel, the royal wedding. Jessica wasn't just a guest. She was front and center, dressed impeccably, flanked by her children in the bridal party, walking into St. George's Chapel like royalty herself. But behind the scenes, Jessica was reportedly working overtime. According to early leaks from her memoir, Jessica helped coordinate vendor negotiations, stylists, and event logistics, often stepping in when palace aides faltered under the global pressure. She allegedly took on tasks that were far beyond friendship favors. She managed crises, fielded press rumors, and played peacemaker between Meghan's US team and British officials. And she did it all, she claims, with no formal contract and barely any compensation. Jessica's memoir is expected to reveal that her role in the royal wedding was never properly acknowledged, either publicly or financially. While Meghan's brand exploded overnight, becoming a global fashion icon and modern duchess, Jessica says she was left out of every post-wedding opportunity. No formal credit, no profit sharing, not even a seat at the table for the ventures that followed. This, according to Jessica, was the beginning of a pattern. The two friends had allegedly co-developed several lifestyle and branding concepts before Meghan became a duchess. Sources close to Jessica claim that she was instrumental in pitching joint fashion lines, content ideas, and style consultancy packages under a shared label. But once Meghan's image became tightly controlled by royal handlers and later Hollywood publicists, Jessica's name began disappearing from everything they'd built together. It wasn't just ghosting, it was strategic erasure. Jessica alleges that Meghan not only cut her out of deals they had once developed together, but also began claiming sole credit for projects originally built on Jessica's ideas and contacts. The memoir reportedly includes contract drafts, email threads, and even pitch decks, showing Jessica's early involvement in collaborations that eventually launched under Meghan's solo banner. And it gets worse. One of the most controversial sections of the book will reportedly dive into their co-branded wedding business venture. The two women were allegedly planning a luxury wedding consultancy brand before Meghan married into the royal family. Jessica, already an established stylist and event planner, brought her clientele and reputation. Meghan brought her growing fame and Hollywood connections. But after the royal wedding catapulted Meghan into global superstardom, Jessica says she was completely frozen out. Her branding proposals? Ignored. Her client pitches? Never forwarded. Her business equity? Vanished. Jessica claims the turning point came during a heated disagreement about profit sharing. According to sources close to the book, Jessica had expected a significant cut from upcoming brand deals tied to Meghan's post-royal fashion ventures, especially ones that repurposed their joint concepts. Instead, Meghan's team reportedly stonewalled her, denying any formal agreement existed and suggesting that Meghan's new direction required a clean break from past partnerships. And yet, the similarities between those new ventures and their old plans were, Jessica claims, uncanny. But it wasn't just about business, it was personal. deeply personal. Jessica reportedly describes the sense of betrayal not just as a financial slight, but as a complete dismissal of their history. The woman who had championed Meghan's rise in the fashion world, who had shared hotel rooms, crisis calls, and champagne-fueled brainstorms, was now being edited out of Meghan's past like a PR liability. It wasn't just about contracts and commissions, it was about being discarded. And then came the final insult. According to leaks, Jessica alleges that Meghan continued to benefit from Jessica's connections long after cutting ties. She reportedly used Jessica's media contacts to get favorable press, tapped into Jessica's fashion network for stylist recommendations, and even reached out to former clients under the guise of Meghan's own brand. In Jessica's words, Meghan didn't just walk away, she extracted every last ounce of value before slamming the door shut. The financial fallout was brutal. Jessica's brand, once booming, was suddenly radioactive. Media campaigns were canceled. Clients distanced themselves. Invitations disappeared. One insider quoted in the memoir describes it as career vaporization by association. And as Jessica's world crumbled, Meghan soared, securing Netflix, Spotify, and speaking deals worth millions. Now, Jessica is flipping the script. Behind the veil reportedly includes payment invoices, deleted texts, and internal notes that show just how deep their financial and creative entanglements ran, and how Meghan systematically unraveled them once she no longer needed the partnership. This isn't a messy breakup over a wedding dress or Instagram drama. This is a business war. One woman claiming she helped build a brand, only to be ghosted, gutted, and gaslighted. And this time, she's not just airing grievances, she's filing receipts. The revelations in this chapter could have serious legal implications. If Jessica can prove that Meghan misused intellectual property or breached verbal agreements, she could potentially expose herself to lawsuits. Not from Jessica, but from business partners who were misled along the way. And that's why this section of the memoir might be the most dangerous of all, because it doesn't just expose Meghan's relationships, it exposes her professional ethics. And if there's one thing Hollywood hates more than bad press, it's a bad deal. The moment Jessica Mulroney's memoir announcement hit the press, Meghan Markle's carefully constructed world cracked open like glass under pressure. Within hours, the Duchess of Sussex went from radiant influencer to frantic operator, scrambling behind the scenes to erase, rewrite, and contain a crisis that she never saw coming. The first sign? A digital purge. Eagle-eyed fans and royal watchers were the first to notice. Posts began vanishing from Meghan's social media footprint. Instagram photos, archived interviews, even tagged appearances with Jessica from as far back as 2015. Gone. Birthday tributes, red carpet snapshots, wedding day reflections, all evaporating in real time like a desperate attempt to pretend the friendship never existed. But the internet never forgets, and screenshots came flooding in. Users on Twitter and Reddit immediately began compiling side-by-side comparisons. Then versus now posts that showed Meghan's once gushing captions about Jessica. Ride or die. My sister. Forever grateful. Against the sudden emptiness of her digital timeline. The result? A self-inflicted PR disaster. Instead of distancing herself gracefully, Meghan appeared panicked, guilty, hiding something. And the purge was just the beginning. According to insiders close to the Sussex camp, Meghan went into full-blown crisis mode. Emergency meetings with PR advisors, back-to-back calls with her legal team. Scheduled appearances were abruptly canceled. Sources claim she holed up in her Montecito mansion for nearly 72 hours following the announcement, speaking only to lawyers and trusted staff. Her team allegedly ran internal audits on every piece of content, articles, photos, endorsements that featured Jessica, trying to assess how deep the connection went and how fast it could be erased. But the real problem? It was already too late. Jessica's announcement wasn't just a threat, it was a declaration. She didn't tease vague allusions or make emotional pleas. She stated plainly that she had proof, receipts, timelines, private conversations, and business documents. Meghan's silence, once her greatest weapon, now worked against her. So for every minute she didn't respond, the public filled in the gaps, and the growing consensus was clear. Meghan was scared. Insiders say Meghan's team weighed every option on the table. A preemptive lawsuit? Too risky. Would confirm the memoir's validity. A public statement? Dangerous. Could invite more scrutiny. A private offer to settle? Already rejected. Jessica, they say, made it crystal clear through intermediaries. No money, no phone call, no deal. The truth is coming out. And that's when the desperation turned strategic. According to leaked emails, Meghan's PR advisors began contacting friendly outlets, attempting to shift the narrative. Stories appeared subtly discrediting Jessica, reminding readers of the 2020 racism scandal, framing the memoir as a bitter attempt to stay relevant. But the effort backfired. Comment sections filled with backlash. Why now? Why attack someone before the book even drops? What is Meghan trying to hide? Worse still, Hollywood insiders began whispering about Meghan's reputation behind the scenes. According to one Netflix source quoted anonymously, she's lost a lot of goodwill. If this book hits hard, she won't just lose fans, she'll lose deals. Executives are reportedly re-evaluating future collaborations. The brand that once commanded seven-figure contracts is now being described in boardrooms as a high-risk liability. But it's the emotional fallout that sources say is rattling Meghan the most. Jessica's memoir doesn't just threaten her business, it threatens her identity. For years, Meghan has presented herself as the woman who rose above betrayal, who weathered palace cruelty, who told her truth. But Jessica's story flips that entirely, casting Meghan not as the victim, but as the architect. The thought of someone so close, someone who knew her before the fame, the palace, the Netflix contracts, telling a different version of events is more than inconvenient. It's existential. Privately, Meghan is said to be devastated. One source claims she broke down crying during a call with a former friend, asking, "Why is she doing this now, after everything I did for her?" But others close to the situation aren't buying the emotional reaction. Meghan made her choices, one anonymous former associate said. She cut people out, controlled the narrative, and now she's surprised it's coming back around? And that's the terrifying part for Meghan. Jessica isn't some fringe figure trying to latch onto the royal circus. She was the inner circle. She was in the room for every pivotal moment, every doubt, every deal, every fight, every confession. And now she's speaking. No wonder Meghan is scrambling. Every move she makes now, every deletion, every lawyer call, every whispered attempt to silence is only confirming the narrative that she's desperate to hide. The public is watching in real time as the Duchess, who once mastered the art of narrative control, slowly loses the plot. And Jessica? She's not saying much, for now. Just a few quotes, carefully worded, legally reviewed, and devastatingly sharp. But the quiet confidence in her tone says everything. I owe it to my children and my legacy to set the record straight. Translation? Meghan can run, she can delete, she can deny. But the truth is coming. And it's already written. The moment Jessica Mulroney announced her memoir, Behind the Veil, the internet didn't just react, it detonated. Within hours, hashtags exploded across social media platforms. On one side, you had Jessica Tells All, a swelling movement rallying behind a woman long seen as collateral damage in Meghan Markle's meteoric rise. On the other hand, Meghan was right, a furious defense of the Duchess, frames Jessica as bitter, opportunistic, and trying to rewrite history. But this wasn't just a social media trend. It became a full-blown digital civil war. And the internet hasn't seen chaos like this since the early days of Megxit. Twitter, now X, transformed overnight into a battleground. Royal watchers, influencers, fashion insiders, and everyday users jumped into the fray, digging up old posts, archived interviews, and long-forgotten podcast clips. One thread went viral within minutes, a side-by-side of Meghan's birthday tributes to Jessica over the years, contrasted with the recent scrubbed timeline. Erased like she never existed, one user wrote, racking up over 500,000 likes in less than 24 hours. The comment? Simple, chilling. Friends don't delete friends, guilty minds do. Instagram, once Meghan's PR playground, turned hostile. Influencers who used to tag her in glowing wellness posts began quietly unfollowing. Others went further, reposting archived clips of Meghan gushing about Jessica, now captioned with scathing sarcasm. Sisterhood is forever, unless there's a book deal. Meanwhile, Jessica's digital resurrection was nothing short of stunning. Just months ago, her name was synonymous with controversy. But now she's being rebranded, not as the villain, but as the underdog. The woman who stayed quiet for 5 years. Who took the hit? Who watched her career burn while Meghan's star ascended? To her defenders, Jessica isn't attacking Meghan. She's reclaiming her voice. TikTok, especially, became a breeding ground for conspiracy and amateur sleuthing. Creators began breaking down every phase of the friendship, from their days in Toronto to the Oprah interview fallout. One viral video, with over 12 million views, analyzed body language clips from old interviews, pointing out moments where Jessica looked silenced, dismissed, or handled. Another video reconstructed the entire Sasha Exeter racism scandal with new context, now casting doubt on Meghan's public distancing from Jessica. Gen Z users, many of whom had only casually followed royal drama, became deeply invested, turning the narrative into a true crime-style saga. Fan theories multiplied. Was Meghan's rise built on broken alliances? Was Jessica set up to take the fall for a larger PR strategy? And most importantly, who else did Meghan burn on the way up? And then came the celebrity endorsements. In a move no one expected, several Canadian media personalities began publicly backing Jessica. Journalists, fashion editors, stylists, even a few former reality stars. Many of them posted the same cryptic phrase, "We knew." We just weren't allowed to say it. Screenshots soon surfaced of celebrities liking Jessica's recent posts, subtle digital nods that spoke volumes. Meanwhile, Meghan's supporters rallied, but not without friction. They pointed back to the racism scandal, arguing that Jessica was never a victim, just someone facing accountability. They accused Jessica of monetizing a private friendship and called her a traitor for cashing in, while Meghan remains under relentless media attack. Some even claimed the memoir was part of a coordinated smear campaign tied to the royal institution, suggesting dark forces were again at work to undermine Meghan's legacy. But the louder they shouted, the more fragmented the narrative became. Because the real damage wasn't being done by the trolls or the haters, it was being done by neutral observers, fans who used to support Meghan, but now felt disillusioned. Many began posting messages like, "I believed in her, but if this is true, I don't know anymore." Others simply said, "This isn't the woman we were sold." And that's the danger Meghan's team never saw coming. This wasn't just about Jessica. It became a referendum on Meghan's entire persona, her rise, her narrative, her relationships. Users began pulling receipts on other people Meghan has cut out over the years. Former friends, stylists, and staffers. A viral thread titled, "The Meghan Markle Burn List," listed over a dozen names, each paired with news clippings, interviews, and eerie silences that suggested similar patterns of closeness, usage, and disappearance. The implication? Jessica wasn't an outlier. She was just the first to talk. And the press noticed. Suddenly, royal commentators were back on every network, dissecting social media trends as indicators of shifting public opinion. One British anchor put it bluntly, "Meghan is no longer fighting the palace. She's fighting the people who knew her before the palace. That fight is one she may not win." Because in the age of digital memory, you can't delete history. You can't edit your way out of screenshots, out of audio files, out of friendships that millions watched in real time. Meghan's silence, once considered dignified, now looks like evasion. And Jessica's boldness, once seen as betrayal, now reads like justice, at least to a growing portion of the public. As the online war intensifies, Meghan's brand continues to bleed. And Jessica? She's done fighting in the shadows. She's tweeting. She's liking posts. She's watching it all unfold. And she hasn't even dropped the book yet. The court of public opinion isn't just deliberating. It's marching, posting, reposting. And with every hashtag, it's reshaping the narrative Meghan fought so hard to control. Because when your digital army turns against you, there's nowhere left to hide. For years, the Sussex brand was bulletproof. Meghan and Harry had successfully spun their royal departure into a global redemption arc, escaping the rigidity of palace life, speaking their truth, and rebranding as freedom-fighting underdogs, navigating fame on their own terms. But behind the podcasts, the documentaries, the curated interviews, and the perfectly lit Instagram shots, something was rotting. And Jessica Mulroney's memoir might be the final blow that brings the whole facade crashing down. Let's be honest, the cracks were already showing. Netflix executives had grown frustrated. Spotify yanked its deal. Hollywood insiders whispered about missed deadlines, inflated egos, and a production company that promised more than it delivered. Harry's spare may have made headlines, but it didn't deliver the long-term cultural clout the Sussexes had hoped for. Their influence was stalling. Their contracts were running dry. Public sentiment was cooling. But then came Behind the Veil. And suddenly, the spotlight is back on Meghan. Not as the victimized royal, but as a brand in crisis. Jessica's memoir isn't just a personal betrayal. It's a professional evisceration. It cuts to the core of everything Meghan and Harry have sold to the public for years. Authenticity, loyalty, courage, truth-telling. Jessica's story doesn't just poke holes in those pillars, it shreds them. Because if even a fraction of her claims are true, if Meghan was behind the manipulation of Harry's memoir, if she pushed allies aside once they outlived their usefulness, if she orchestrated a PR narrative at the expense of those closest to her, then the Sussex brand doesn't just lose credibility, it loses its soul. And here's the problem for Meghan and Harry. There's no one left to blame. They can't accuse Jessica of being part of the royal machine. They can't paint her as a jealous outsider. She was the inner circle. She was there before the crowns, the contracts, the cover stories. She didn't need an introduction. She helped write the first act of the Meghan Markle story, which means her revelations hit differently. They're not anonymous sources. They're not speculative headlines. They're first-hand accounts from the woman who knew Meghan best. That's what's terrifying Meghan's team. Every time she tries to dismiss the memoir, she draws more attention to it. Every silent erasure from social media becomes another screenshot. Every leaked quote from Jessica becomes a viral talking point. Meghan's usual crisis tactics, tight control, vague statements, playing the long game, aren't working this time. Not when your enemy knows your tactics. Not when your enemy taught you some of them. Even worse, Jessica's book is dropping just as Meghan and Harry were scrambling to reinvent themselves again, pivoting from royal drama to lifestyle gurus, philanthropic thought leaders, and Hollywood creatives. But how do you sell empowerment when your former best friend is accusing you of betrayal? How do you sell authenticity when someone from your past is claiming it was all an act? You don't. You can't. Insiders are now saying investors are nervous, brand partners are hesitant, and production companies are quietly pulling back. The Sussexes were once considered media gold, but now they're a gamble. And no one wants to bankroll a brand that's bleeding credibility by the hour. Even the palace is watching. Royal insiders, once painted as villains in Meghan's story, are reportedly vindicated by Jessica's claims. One senior royal aide anonymously told the press, "We were accused of sabotage. But maybe now the world sees it wasn't us." And just like that, the narrative that Meghan and Harry clung to, the moral high ground, the escape from cruelty, the truth-telling mission, is unraveling. The Sussex brand was built on a simple premise. We were silenced, so now we speak. But now someone else is speaking. Someone who was there before the spotlight. Someone who helped build the image. Someone who says the silence was a choice, not a punishment, and the stories were sculpted, not suffered. Jessica's memoir doesn't just threaten Meghan's reputation. It threatens the very foundation of her identity in the post-royal world. Because when your fairy tale falls apart, the world doesn't just look away. It looks closer. And if Behind the Veil delivers what it promises, Meghan Markle won't be able to hide behind titles, trauma, or talent anymore. She'll be exposed for exactly what she is. And that might be the final nail in the Sussex brand. For years, Meghan Markle controlled the narrative. She curated her image with surgical precision. Activist, survivor, mother, duchess, disruptor. She weaponized silence when it served her, and wielded vulnerability when it moved headlines. She positioned herself as the misunderstood outsider, the American biracial woman who dared to speak out against centuries of royal oppression. And the world, for a time, believed her. But every story has witnesses, and now one of hers has stepped forward. Jessica Mulroney wasn't a critic. She wasn't a journalist or a royal commentator. She was the woman who was there before the crown, before the crisis, before the brand. She was the witness, the sounding board, the fixer, the keeper of secrets, the friend who saw everything, from the late-night meltdowns to the PR strategies, from the real Meghan to the one that appeared on magazine covers. And now, that witness has turned. Behind the Veil isn't just another celebrity memoir. It's a mirror, held up to a narrative that millions once bought into without question. It challenges the foundation of Meghan's rise by exposing not just contradictions, but intent. It suggests that the pain was real, but so was the manipulation. That the friendship was deep, but so was the betrayal. That the image was powerful, but it came at a cost few were willing to speak about, until now. Jessica's story strikes a chord because it's not about royalty. It's about character. It's about what happens when ambition eclipses loyalty, when personal gain demands sacrificial lambs, and when the very people who lifted you up become inconvenient footnotes in your journey. Meghan didn't just lose a friend, she lost her shield. Because when the witness turns against you, they don't have to speculate, they testify. And the world listens. The timing couldn't be worse. Hollywood is growing colder. The contracts are drying up. The Sussex's once unshakable grip on public sympathy is slipping. And now, with Jessica threatening to blow the lid off Meghan's most protected truths, there's no PR spin strong enough to contain the fallout. Because Meghan didn't see this coming. She knew how to silence the press, how to dodge palace leaks, how to bury bad headlines. But she never planned for Jessica, never imagined that the one person she thought would stay quiet, the one person who knew it all, would decide to speak, loudly, publicly, permanently. This isn't just reputational damage, it's legacy damage. No palace scandal, no British tabloid, no royal aide ever posed a threat like this, because those people could be dismissed, doubted, denied. Jessica can't. She was there. And now she's telling the world exactly what she saw behind the scenes of one of the most carefully choreographed personas in modern celebrity history. So the question isn't whether Meghan Markle's image survives this. The real question is, what does she have left once the truth is no longer hers to tell? Because when the witness turns against you, there's no script, no crown, no edit, just the truth, and the wreckage it leaves behind.